My name is Richard, and I need to tell you something that happened 2 years ago that I still can't process. I made senior partner at one of New York's most prestigious law firms by 43 years old, youngest senior partner in the firm's 120-year history. Wall Street Journal profiled me. I had the corner office on the 52nd floor. I had the seven-figure salary. I had the reputation, the power, the success that everyone dreams about. But 2 years ago, my wife of 46 years died. And when I opened the newspaper to read her obituary, written by our children, it said Margaret Anderson, beloved mother and teacher, is survived by her children Rachel and Thomas, and her grandchildren. That was it. No mention of her husband. No mention of me. 46 years of marriage, and I was erased from her life story. I'm 72 years old now. The career's over. The achievements mean nothing. But my wife's obituary, the permanent public record of her life, doesn't include me. Her own children didn't think I was worth mentioning. Not because they forgot, because I was so absent, so invisible in Margaret's life, that including me would have been a lie. And if you're out there right now chasing that promotion, working those endless hours, telling yourself your family understands, I need you to stop and hear this, because I made senior partner by 43, and my wife's obituary erased me completely, and there's no coming back from that. Let me take you back to 1974. I was 26 years old, fresh out of Columbia Law School, and I'd just been hired at Winston & Rhodes, one of the most elite corporate law firms in Manhattan. This was everything I'd worked for. If I could just survive the brutal associate years, if I could make partner, if I could climb to the top, I'd have security, prestige, everything my working class parents never had. Margaret was my college sweetheart. We got married right after I graduated. She was a kindergarten teacher, brilliant, compassionate, everything I wasn't. She supported my ambition from day one. She'd say, "Go change the world, Edward. I'll be here." And I believed her. I believed she'd always be there, waiting, no matter how long I made her wait. That's the first lie. Nobody waits forever. The hours started immediately, 80, 90, sometimes 100-hour weeks. I'd leave our small apartment at 6 a.m. I'd come home at midnight, sometimes 2 a.m. Margaret would be asleep. We'd go weeks barely speaking. Our marriage became ships passing in the night. Occasional conversations about bills and logistics, nothing real. But I was building something. I was proving myself. I told myself the sacrifice was temporary. In 1977, Margaret got pregnant. We hadn't planned it. I was up for junior partner. The timing felt terrible. But Margaret was overjoyed, and I pretended to be too. Our daughter Rachel was born in 1978. I was in a deposition when Margaret's water broke. Her mother had to drive her to the hospital. I got there 3 hours after Rachel was born. Margaret's first words to me weren't about our daughter. They were, "You missed it again." Again, as if she'd been keeping track of all the things I'd already missed. I held Rachel for maybe 10 minutes before a partner paged me about an emergency with a client. I actually left the hospital to take a conference call. I told myself Margaret would understand. The client was important. The case was worth millions. The pattern was set. I provided financially. Margaret provided everything else. She raised Rachel alone. She handled every middle of the night feeding, every doctor's appointment, every milestone. I was building my career. I told myself I was building our future. In 1980, I made junior partner, 32 years old. Massive achievement. Margaret planned a celebration dinner. I missed it for a client emergency. She stopped planning celebrations after that. In 1982, our son Thomas was born. I was there for the birth this time, but I took calls in the hospital hallway during Margaret's labor. The nurses actually asked me to step outside because I was disturbing other patients. I have this memory that destroys me. Rachel was maybe 5 years old. It was a Saturday morning. She came into the study where I was working on case files and asked if I'd come make pancakes with her. It was something I'd promised her weeks earlier. I said, "Not now, sweetheart. Daddy has important work." She said, "But you promised." I snapped at her. Actually snapped. I said, Rachel, I don't have time for this right now. She left without saying anything. Margaret came in 10 minutes later and said, she's in her room crying. She waited all week for you to keep that promise. I felt guilty for about 30 seconds. Then I went back to my work. I told myself I'd make it up to her. I never made pancakes with Rachel. Not once. By 1985, I was on track for senior partner, the youngest associate ever considered. This was everything. If I could just push through the next few years, if I could prove myself indispensable, I'd make it. Margaret tried to talk to me about our marriage, about how we never spent time together, about how the kids barely knew me, about how she felt like a single mother. I got defensive. I said I was working for us, for our family, for our future. She said, Edward, we don't have a future if we don't have a present. You're missing everything. I told her she was being dramatic, that successful men had demanding careers, that this was the price of the life we had. She stopped trying to talk to me about it after that. In 1991, I made senior partner, 43 years old, youngest senior partner in the firm's history. Massive celebration at the office, partners congratulating me, my name on the letterhead, everything I'd sacrificed for. I got home at 2 a.m. that night. Margaret was asleep. Rachel was 13. Thomas was 9. They were asleep too. I'd achieved my biggest career goal, and I celebrated alone. Margaret left me a note on the kitchen counter. Congratulations. The kids wanted to wait up, but it got too late. We're proud of you. Not, I'm proud of you. We're proud of you. Like she was speaking for the family to a colleague, not her husband. Making senior partner didn't slow down my schedule. It increased it. Now I had client development responsibilities, firm management, strategic planning. I was working 90-hour weeks well into my 50s. Rachel went to college in 1996. Brown, I visited campus exactly 0 times in 4 years. I wrote the tuition checks. That was my contribution to her education. Thomas went to college in 2000. Same pattern. I funded everything, attended nothing. Margaret built her entire life around teaching and the kids. She had her friends, her book clubs, her garden. She'd created a full, rich life that didn't include me because I was never there to be included. The kids graduated, got jobs, got married. I showed up for the weddings, sat through the ceremonies on my phone, gave generous checks as gifts. That was my role. The wallet? Not the father. In 2010, Rachel had a daughter, my first grandchild, Sophia. I met her when she was 2 weeks old, held her for 5 minutes before I had to take a call. Rachel's face when I handed Sophia back to deal with work. I saw it, the disappointment, the resignation, the acceptance that her father would always choose work. In 2014, Margaret got diagnosed with breast cancer. Stage 2, treatable. The doctors said she'd need surgery, chemo, radiation. She asked if I could cut back my hours to help her through treatment. I said I'd try. I didn't try. I kept working my usual schedule. Margaret's sister moved in to help her. I paid all the medical bills. I told myself that was enough, that providing financially was support. Margaret went through chemo without me holding her hand. She went through radiation without me driving her to appointments. She recovered, but something changed after that. She stopped expecting anything from me. She stopped being disappointed when I wasn't there. By 2020, we were essentially roommates. We lived in the same house. We slept in the same bed, but we had no relationship. She had her life. I had my work. We existed in parallel, not together. I retired in 2021 at 69. 50 years in law, massive retirement party, hundreds of colleagues. Margaret came but left early, said she wasn't feeling well. Over the next year, I tried to reconnect with her. I was finally home, finally available, but she was distant. When I'd try to talk, she'd be polite but detached. When I'd suggest trips or activities, she'd say she had other plans. I asked her once, "Do you even love me anymore?" She thought about it for a long time. Then she said, "Edward, I don't know. I don't know who you are. We've been married 46 years and you're a stranger to me. In April 2022, Margaret got sick. Flu-like symptoms that wouldn't go away. The doctors ran tests. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Metastasized. They gave her maybe 6 months. I was devastated. I took time off. I tried to be there for her, but she didn't want me there. She wanted Rachel. She wanted Thomas. She wanted her sister, her friends, people who'd actually been present in her life. I'd sit with her during treatments, and she'd ask me to leave. She'd say, "Edward, you don't need to be here out of obligation. Go do whatever you need to do." Like I was a distant relative performing duty visits, not her husband of 46 years. Rachel and Thomas took family leave to care for her. They were there constantly. I was there too, but I was an outsider. They had inside jokes with their mother. They knew her routines, her preferences, her stories. I didn't know any of it. 6 months later, in October 2022, Margaret died at home in hospice. I was holding her hand. Rachel and Thomas were there. Her sister was there. In her final hours, she spoke to each of them, told them she loved them, thanked them for being there. She looked at me but didn't say anything. Just looked at me with these eyes that seemed to ask, "Who are you?" And then she closed her eyes and was gone. The next day, Rachel and Thomas wrote the obituary. They showed it to me before submitting it. I read it once, twice, 3 times. Margaret Anderson, beloved mother and teacher, is survived by her children Rachel and Thomas, and her grandchildren Sophia, Jacob and Emma. No mention of her husband. No mention of me. I asked them why. Rachel said, "Dad, you weren't part of her life." "Not really. Including you would feel dishonest." Thomas agreed. They weren't being cruel. They were being truthful. I begged them to add me. I was her husband. Legally, officially, I was her husband. Rachel said, "You were married to her, but you were never her partner. You were never there. We're writing about Mom's life, about the people who mattered to her. And honestly, Dad, you weren't one of them." The obituary ran in the New York Times. Hundreds of people saw it. Colleagues, friends, family, and I wasn't mentioned. 46 years of marriage, erased, publicly, permanently. At the funeral, Rachel and Thomas gave eulogies. They talked about their mother's kindness, her dedication to teaching, her love for her family. They thanked the people who'd been there for her, her sister, her best friend, her colleagues. They didn't mention me. Not once. I sat in the front row, the invisible widower. After the funeral, I tried to talk to them. I said I'd been there. I'd been her husband. Rachel said, "Dad, being married to someone isn't the same as being there. You missed her entire life. You worked instead of loving her. And now she's gone, and you can't fix it." I'm 72 years old now, 2 years since Margaret died. Her obituary is still online, still a permanent record that doesn't include me. My wife's life story, and I'm not in it. Here's what took me 72 years to learn. You can be married to someone and still be absent. You can be legally bound and emotionally gone. And when they die, the obituary tells the truth. The people who mattered were the people who showed up. I made senior partner by 43, youngest in the firm's history, and my wife's obituary erased me because I'd erased myself from her life decades earlier. I see men today making the same mistake, chasing promotions, working endless hours, telling themselves their spouses understand, not realizing they're becoming strangers to the people they married. Your spouse won't wait forever. They'll build a life without you. And when they die, the obituary will reflect the truth. Were you there or weren't you? If I could go back to 1974, I'd tell my 26-year-old self, that partnership isn't worth losing your wife. Those hours aren't worth becoming a stranger to her. Be home, be present, actually be married, not just legally bound. Because I promise you, when she dies, you want the obituary to say survived by her loving husband, not just survived by her children, because you were so absent you didn't count. I worked 50 years. I made senior partner at 43. I had every professional success. and my wife's obituary erased me. That's my legacy. Not the cases I won. Not the partner title. The fact that when my wife died, her children didn't think I was worth mentioning. So if you're out there working late again, I'm begging you, go home. Be with your spouse. Actually be married. Because time runs out. And when it does, the obituary tells the truth. And you don't want that truth to be that you didn't matter enough to include. I made senior partner by 43. And my wife's obituary erased me completely. Don't be me. Choose your marriage before it's too late.